Do you feel it? That subtle tremor, that sense that the world around you isn't quite as solid as it seems. What if that feeling isn't just your imagination, but a sign that reality itself is beginning to fracture? What if the very fabric of what you consider to be real is starting to unravel, revealing something far more profound underneath? This isn't just some abstract philosophical musing. This is about reclaiming your own power, about understanding the true nature of your experience. Imagine someone like Maria, who spent her life feeling trapped by her circumstances, only to discover that by changing her perspective, she could literally rewrite her life story from one of struggle to one of fulfillment. This isn't just about you, however. Our shared reality forms the bedrock of our society, of governments, economies, and social norms. If this bedrock can be altered, then the entire structure of our world can be reshaped. This understanding has massive implications for how you see your past, your present, and your future. What you believe is possible, what you accept as true, is all open to reinterpretation and is based entirely on your own perspective. This video is not a descent into fear or chaos, but an ascent into understanding, where you become not a passive observer, but an active architect of your experience. Have you ever had that nagging sensation, that persistent feeling of disconnection, like you're watching a movie instead of living your life? It's a feeling that is often dismissed as anxiety or overthinking. But what if that feeling is actually your internal alarm system, a signal that something deeper is happening, a sign that your perception of reality is shifting? Now, think of that famous image of the dress. Some see it as blue and black, while others perceive it as white and gold. Both groups are looking at the same image, yet they are seeing completely different things. This is not a simple visual trick. This is a clear demonstration of how our senses do not provide an objective view of the world, but an interpretation based on our unique perspective and filters. Our families, our cultures, and our societies all contribute to building these filters, shaping how we see, feel, and understand the world around us. Someone who is raised in a modern urban environment will have a dramatically different understanding of life than someone raised in an indigenous tribe, and yet each perceives their own reality as true and correct. So, who is right? Or are they all simply unique stories we've been conditioned to accept? What about those strange moments of déjà vu? You're walking down a street, you're talking to a person, and suddenly you're hit with a strange sensation that you have experienced this exact moment before. You might brush it off, but what if it's not a random glitch, but a signal, a sign that there is more to reality than we've been led to believe? What if that feeling is a door opening to another dimension of understanding? If our senses can deceive us, what can we truly know about the world? If our reality is merely a construct, who is the architect? And what does that mean for our individual existence? What if there are individuals, perhaps throughout history, who have understood this all along, who have quietly manipulated or influenced the very structure of this constructed reality? How would that change the way you understand history, your society, and perhaps even your own identity? Let's imagine for a moment that this is all a kind of simulation, a vast, intricate video game. What would that imply? Are there non-player characters, or are we all real players with varying levels of awareness? And what about the times when the program seems to break? What is the purpose of those glitches we experience, the moments of strangeness that don't quite fit into the accepted narrative? This is just the beginning of the journey. We will explore ancient spiritual wisdom, the mind-bending ideas of quantum physics, and the hidden dimensions of metaphysics. So, are you prepared to step through the looking glass and explore this breaking reality with us? So, we've seen how our senses and our individual experiences shape our reality. But what about the larger narratives we've been given? What about the unspoken rules, the cultural norms, and the societal expectations that quietly dictate so much of our lives? Have you ever stopped to question why things are the way they are, or to wonder why certain beliefs are so strongly held? Take the concept of beauty, for example. In many Western cultures, thinness is often equated with beauty, a standard that is relentlessly promoted through media and advertising. Yet, in other cultures, such as Mauritania, a more voluptuous figure is seen as the ideal. In the Renaissance, pale skin was a sign of nobility, while in many parts of Africa, darker skin is seen as more desirable. These standards of beauty are not innate or universal, they are learned, and they are culturally enforced. Or consider the idea of success. In some societies, accumulating wealth and material possessions is seen as the ultimate measure of a successful life, while in others, it is the depth of one's relationships, the contribution to the community, or the pursuit of spiritual enlightenment. What one culture prizes as the ultimate goal is often an afterthought for another. Even ideas of social structure, the way we organize our communities, is not a given. In some cultures, such as many tribal societies, communal living and collective decision-making are the norm, where individual needs are placed below the needs of the group. Whereas in Western cultures, we have a heavy emphasis on individual autonomy and personal ambition. The point is, what we perceive as normal is based on a cultural agreement, a story we've all been told, rather than a universal truth. Now, if these societal norms are learned and not inherent, who is telling the story? And what is the intention behind it? Let's look at how those in power manipulate social narratives. Throughout history, ruling classes have used specific stories to maintain their dominance. In ancient Rome, the idea of divine right, that the emperor was chosen by the gods, was used to legitimize their power and discourage dissent. Similarly, in feudal societies, the concept of a rigid social hierarchy, with kings and nobles at the top and peasants at the bottom, was presented as the natural order of things, a system that was unchangeable and ordained by God, so that the peasants wouldn't question why they had to toil their lives away for the benefit of a small few. Political narratives today follow a similar pattern. Modern political parties use the concept of us versus them to create division and loyalty. By demonizing the other side, they create an environment of fear and distrust, which allows them to consolidate their power. If you believe that one side is always good and the other is always evil, then you are far less likely to question your own side and far less likely to work together to create positive change. The news media, both on the right and on the left, often use the language of conflict to frame issues and stories, encouraging viewers to believe that the world is a constant battle between good and evil. This is not just about politics. Think of advertising. Companies use sophisticated techniques to convince us that we need their products to be happy, healthy, or successful. This creates a cycle of consumption where our desires are constantly being manufactured and our attention is being directed to things that are ultimately not important. So the question is, if the stories of our culture are not objective, what can we know for sure? Consider the very words we use. Language is not just a tool for communication, it is a framework for how we perceive the world. The words and concepts we use can subtly shape our beliefs and influence our perceptions. Think of how a political debate is framed. If one side is labeled as pro-choice and the other as pro-life, those very words influence how the public sees the issue. One is seen as a positive personal freedom, and the other is framed as a fundamental morality. The language shapes our understanding even before the debate has begun. Or consider the term climate change. While the science may be clear, the framing of the issue is often loaded with political implications, subtly influencing how people feel about the topic and whether they believe in the data. One term is framed as a natural process, the other as an impending catastrophe. Even something as simple as the way we describe our own lives, our own stories, can dramatically impact how we see ourselves. If you constantly tell yourself a story that you're not good enough, then that story becomes your reality, no matter how untrue it is. But if our perception of reality is being shaped, controlled, and influenced, then we have to ask, what can we actually do about it? If reality is a story, then can't we choose to change the story, starting with the stories we are telling ourselves? If we are not just passive observers, but active participants, then it becomes our responsibility to discern which stories we are accepting as true and which ones we are ready to rewrite, starting with the stories we are telling ourselves. Now, let's move beyond the social and into the scientific and metaphysical to see how these ideas also point to a fluid, malleable reality. Let's start with quantum physics and a concept known as the observer effect. You see, in the quantum realm, the act of observing a particle actually changes its behavior. In the famous double-slit experiment, when scientists try to observe which slit a photon passes through, the photon behaves like a particle, but when they are not watching, it behaves like a wave. The simple act of looking, of observation, changes the reality of the particle. Now, if the very smallest parts of our universe react like this to observation, then what does that tell us about our everyday experience? If observation influences behavior at the quantum level, then could it be influencing our experience of reality as well? The implications are mind-bending. It suggests that our reality is not fixed or objective, but is actively being shaped by our consciousness, by our very act of observation. It's not just something we are watching, but a living experience we are creating. This concept becomes even more mind-blowing when we begin to explore the holographic universe theory, a model that suggests our reality is not what it seems, but a kind of projection from a deeper level of existence. Think of a hologram. It's a two-dimensional image that, when illuminated, creates a three-dimensional appearance. The entire image is encoded on the surface of the hologram, and every part of the hologram contains the information about the whole. The theory suggests that our universe may be functioning in a similar way, that what we perceive as three-dimensional reality is actually a projection from a deeper, more fundamental level of existence. Like a holographic image, everything is interconnected, and every part contains information about the whole. The universe, according to this model, is less like a collection of independent objects and more like a vast, interconnected web of information. This theory has been considered by physicists like David Bohm, who, like Einstein, began to look at the fabric of reality at a subatomic level and discovered that particles were interconnected on a level we cannot see. This all begins to point to the idea that our experience of reality is a kind of illusion, a projection from a deeper, hidden dimension. So, are we beginning to see how solid reality might actually be a projection? This is where the ancient spiritual traditions come in. The idea that reality is not what it seems, that it is a kind of illusion or dream, is not just a modern idea. It has been understood in various cultures for thousands of years. In Hinduism, the concept of Maya refers to the illusionary nature of the world, suggesting that the physical reality we perceive is not ultimately real, but a kind of veil that hides a deeper truth. Similarly, in Buddhism, the concept of impermanence suggests that everything is in a constant state of flux, that nothing is fixed or permanent, that what we experience as reality is just a flow of constant change. In Taoism, the idea of the Tao, the underlying principle of the universe, emphasizes the interconnectedness of all things, that what we see as separate and individual are all manifestations of the same universal energy. For centuries, people from many different spiritual traditions, separated by culture and history, have all pointed to the same ideas. That our perceptions are limited, and that what we experience as reality is not as solid as it appears. So, what does this all mean? If ancient wisdom, modern science, and philosophy all point towards a fluid reality, could the simulation be more real than we are ready to believe? If our reality is a construct, then what does that mean for our ability to affect it? The idea that we can consciously shape our experience is more than just hopeful thinking. The placebo effect provides a clear example of how our beliefs and expectations can literally alter our physical reality. In medical trials, participants who receive a placebo, a fake treatment, often experience the same benefits as those who receive the actual treatment, simply because they believe it will work. Our minds are creating real physical changes in our bodies, proving the influence of belief on physical reality. The placebo effect shows us how our expectations directly influence our biology. Our minds are actively creating our experience. If we believe that we will heal, that we will feel better, that we will achieve our goals, then our bodies and our minds will actively work to create that reality. So, how can we start to become more aware of our own power, and how can we learn to use our minds to create the reality we want? Let's start with something simple: mindfulness. Mindfulness is the practice of bringing your attention to the present moment without judgment. It's about becoming aware of your thoughts, your emotions, and your physical sensations without getting carried away by them. So, how can you use this in your daily life? Find a quiet place where you can be alone, sit down and close your eyes. Begin to notice your breath. Feel the air coming in through your nose and feel the air going out. As you breathe, you will also notice the thoughts and feelings that arise, and this is normal. Don't try to stop them, just observe them as a passive witness, as a watcher from afar. See them as clouds drifting by in the sky, and don't get carried away by the content of the thought. Just continue to bring your attention back to your breath whenever your mind wanders. As you practice this, you will begin to create space between yourself and your thoughts and your emotions. You will realize that you are not your thoughts and you are not your emotions, but rather the observer of these things. This act of simple detachment will begin to give you a new perspective, a place of quiet observation from where you can actively choose how to react to what comes up. Now, let's talk about intention. Setting an intention is about consciously choosing what you want to focus on and what you want to create. Instead of letting your thoughts and emotions run you, you are now taking an active role in directing your energy and your attention. Find a moment of quiet to do this exercise as well. Close your eyes and ask yourself, what is my intention? What do I want to experience in my life? It could be something as simple as feeling more calm and at peace, or something as ambitious as achieving a major goal. Once you've identified your intention, clearly state it to yourself as if it is already a reality. For example, you could say, I am calm and at peace, or I am achieving my goals with ease and grace, and see how that feels. Now, throughout your day, whenever you feel stressed, whenever you feel overwhelmed, whenever you feel like you are drifting away from your intention, come back to this moment and focus on that feeling. Remind yourself that you are choosing to experience this reality, that you are actively creating your own path. By consciously choosing where to focus your energy, you are shaping the direction of your own life, and you are beginning to take responsibility for the experience. We are not victims of circumstance. We are active participants, co-creators in a reality that is, quite literally, a reflection of our inner world. Instead of passively accepting what is happening to us, we can actively choose what we focus on and influence what we manifest. It's a shift from feeling like you are being pushed around by the current to being the navigator of your ship, a shift from victim to co-creator. So, with this in mind, how else can we begin to recognize this malleable reality? Where else do we see the evidence of this breaking reality? What about those strange glitches we experience? Those moments of déjà vu, repeating numbers, or strange synchronicities? Instead of dismissing them as random occurrences, what if we begin to see them as opportunities for deeper insight? What if they are signals that we are moving towards a deeper understanding of the constructed nature of reality? What if the simulation itself is offering clues about how to navigate it? Take repeating numbers, for example. You might glance at the clock and see 11, or you might look at your bank balance and see 222. What if these are not coincidences, but rather signals that you're on the right path? Or what about déjà vu? You've had the feeling that you've experienced a moment before, yet know you have never lived that specific event. What if this isn't a trick of the mind, but an indication that your awareness has tapped into a deeper level of reality? Now, think of these not as weird things, but as meaningful signals, telling you to pay attention to what you're doing. These are clues in the system, a call to awaken and to pay attention. These ideas lead to something I like to call matrix moments, those times when the illusion of reality seems to slip away, when you suddenly become aware of the constructed nature of your experience. Maybe it's a strange coincidence, a bizarre dream that feels incredibly real, or an out-of-place sensation that makes no rational sense. These are the moments when the program seems to break, when the veil is lifted, and the underlying structure of reality is revealed. The key here is to pay attention to these moments, to take note of them, and to ask yourself, what is this trying to show me? Instead of dismissing them as random occurrences, see them as moments of potential awakening, moments of opportunity to learn more about the nature of your experience. Keep a journal and write them down when they occur. Start to look for patterns and start to ask questions about why these moments are happening. And know that in that act of observing these moments, you are now shifting from a passive observer to an active participant. The observer effect is no longer just theoretical. You're now applying this concept to the fabric of your own life. You are now changing your relationship with reality itself. If glitches are part of the program, what can learning to recognize them tell us about the code? What else is hiding just below the surface? If this reality is not set in stone, and you have the tools to change it, then what becomes possible? You are not a victim of this reality, you are its co-creator, and now you have the tools to prove it. This is not just some intellectual idea, but a fundamental shift in how you perceive yourself and the world. What we've just covered is just the beginning of the rabbit hole, just the surface of something incredibly vast and powerful, and there are so many more exciting layers of understanding waiting to be discovered. So if this is true, what is possible for you? What can you now create and change in your own life? What stories can you now rewrite? The theory is good, but the practice is better. Now is the time for you to begin exploring the depths of your own power and understanding. It's time to start. So, you felt it, this sense that reality is not as solid as you were led to believe. The feeling that something is shifting, that the world is not quite the same as it once was, that underlying everything there is something else, something more. This breaking of reality, these moments where the illusion seems to slip away, is not something to fear. It's not a sign that everything is falling apart, but rather a sign that you are awakening. It is evidence that you are beginning to see beyond the surface, that you are starting to recognize the constructed nature of your experience, and in that recognition, you are finding your own power. You are no longer passively observing the world, you are actively participating in it, and the ability to recognize these glitches and matrix moments is actually your way of understanding the code, the underlying structure of reality. These moments are not just random occurrences, but opportunities for insight, invitations to investigate, and to step into your own personal power as a conscious co-creator. And that, truly, is the core understanding here. This journey we've been on is not about discovering a truth outside of yourself, but realizing the immense power within you to shape your own experience. You see, this entire exploration, this questioning of everything, is not about finding some external truth. It's about realizing that you are the source of your own reality. You are not a passive observer on the sidelines of life. You are an active co-creator of your experience. That's right, you are the programmer, the architect of your own existence, and what is happening now is that you are beginning to see the code. What you are experiencing is not a breakdown, but a breakthrough, not a moment of fear, but an awakening into power. This understanding goes beyond personal change. It ripples outwards, impacting the collective. This shift in awareness, this understanding of the malleable nature of reality, is not just for your own personal benefit. It's part of a larger shift happening in the collective consciousness of humanity. As more and more individuals begin to recognize the constructed nature of reality, we collectively have the opportunity to create a world that is more aligned with our highest intentions and our deepest values. When you change your own life, when you rewrite your own stories, that acts as a ripple. It affects everyone. And so this is not just about you, it's about all of us. The understanding that reality is a story, that the rules are not set in stone, means that we have the possibility to change that story. This isn't just a fascinating intellectual concept, it's a key to unlocking a world of limitless possibilities. By recognizing that reality is a construct, We are empowered to create a better one, not just for ourselves, but for everyone around us. The narratives we have been given, the systems that have been imposed, the limitations that have been placed upon us can be rewritten, not just as individuals, but as a collective. And this is your responsibility, not to be a passive recipient, but to actively participate in the creation of the world. So, are you ready to step into that role? Are you ready to take the responsibility that comes with this level of understanding? The shift here is from what is to what could be. It's from feeling like a leaf being blown about by the wind to recognizing that you are the wind itself. The potential for transformation is limitless. The only limits are the ones you place on yourself and that you choose to accept as being real. We began this journey by asking a simple question: do you feel it? Do you feel like reality is breaking? We then went on a journey to understand that our perceptions are a filter, that the stories we have been told are not always true, and that reality is far more fluid than we have been led to believe. We examined the ways in which our senses, our social conditioning, and our beliefs all create the world that we experience. We explored the ideas from metaphysics, ancient wisdom, and quantum physics, all pointing to the idea that reality is not what it seems. And finally, we explored the power of the mind to actively shape experience. By being mindful, setting intentions, and observing those moments of glitch or matrix in our lives, we began to see that we are not just passive observers, but active participants. We explored the simulation metaphor, and we saw that by understanding the rules of the game, we can change the game itself. So we've come full circle and answered the initial question. Yes, you are feeling it, because it is happening, but not in a way that is chaotic or negative, but rather as a positive sign, a signal that you are awakening into your power. We are not at the end of the road here, but only at the beginning. While there are still many mysteries yet to uncover, many questions yet to answer, you have now taken the most important step. You've started your journey of understanding and the adventure of co-creation. The path of questioning should be a constant companion from here on out. You now have the tools and the understanding to actively investigate your own experience. Begin to question everything, not from a place of cynicism, but from a place of genuine curiosity and the desire to understand your own truth. And this is not just some intellectual exercise. These ideas can be applied to all areas of your life, from your personal relationships to your career to the kind of world that you want to live in. You can rewrite the story, and in doing so, you can actively shape your experience. Start experimenting with these ideas, start applying them in your daily life, and you will soon begin to see how flexible this reality truly is and the power that you have to shape it. So, are you ready to begin? Are you ready to step into your role as a co-creator? To explore, to experiment, to challenge what you thought was real, and to discover the limitless potential that lies within you. It is time to actively participate in your own life, to consciously choose the stories you want to live, and to create the reality that you truly desire. It's time to begin. And to support you in this journey, there are resources and links in the description below to help you go deeper on this path. I also invite you to engage in the comments and share your own insights, your own matrix moments, and the ways in which you're beginning to reshape your experience. I look forward to hearing what you discover on your journey and to continuing to explore these exciting topics together.